This is the Tissot PRX. When it launched in 2020, it made a splash in the watch world. This is a Sheffield all-sport diver. This watch might be from the 60s, and that's all I know about it. Despite these differences, these two watches are probably more similar than you might think. So let's dive on into this. And yes, pun very much intended. Hey there, and welcome back. I'm Andrew, and today we're talking about watches, and more specifically why I think that this vintage watch is pretty similar to this modern watch. Let's start with the PRX. This is the Powermatic 80 in 40 millimeters, and admittedly, it's a little bit big on me. But the automatic was the only option available when I bought it back in 2021. Nowadays, you can get the Powermatic in the 35mm variant, but watches are kind of one of those things that get a lot of sentimental value attached to them. This is the watch I wore when I got married. I bought this watch when I got my first promotion. So oversized or not, this thing isn't going anywhere. Besides, it's got all these scratches that are all mine, and you know I'm a guy who likes a little bit of patina and a little bit of wear. The Powermatic 80 part comes from the automatic movement that has 80 hours of power reserve. This movement has been rock solid over the 2 years that I've owned it. I've never really felt like it wandered too much or anything like that. The movement is a C07.111, or really what is just a modified ETA 2824. It stays accurate, losing only about 1 or 2 seconds a day, and I really only have to reset it every 1 or 2 weeks depending on how much I'm wearing it. It has 100 meters of water resistance, or 10 bar, which is what that X stands for, and weighs 126.1 grams sized for my wrist, which has a couple links removed. Speaking of which, while it was a little annoying to get sized up the first time around, I found it to be actually pretty comfortable. I really like that it has this butterfly clasp, and it's really fun to fidget with. Since the launch of the PRX, this kind of integrated bracelet style has had a lot of competitors, both new and old. There's entries from newer brands like Christopher Ward in the 12, but then there's also entries from more established brands like Citizen. Of course, this is inspired by much more expensive and much older designs as well, such as the Patek Philippe Nautilus, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and the Vacheron Constantin Overseas. This is just a way of saying that the integrated bracelet thing is nothing new. It wasn't invented by the Tissot PRX by any means. It was really designed by this fella, Gerald Genta. He's kind of credited with making all the cool stuff like that Royal Oak earlier, and really kickstarted this sort of design language. For Tissot in particular, the design of the PRX isn't also anything that's new. It's based off of their old C-Star quartz from about the 70s. Especially in the 35mm size, they look a lot like the PRXs of today, and at the time, they were Tissot's dive watches. But these don't look like modern dive watches, and it doesn't even look like the current C-Star lineup. So what gives? This is why I bring up my Sheffield all-sport diver. It's got a design that looks a lot more like a modern dive watch. This watch is what people call a skin diver. They look like a regular dive watch, but what really differentiates them from a regular diver is that they aren't nearly as bulky, with a significantly slimmer case and usually less water resistance too. Though this one in particular, being as old as it is, I don't think it really has any water resistance left in it at all. At 35mm and just 47.5 grams, it's much easier to wear on the wrist. The fully manual movement is working well, and while it's not as accurate as a modern movement, it's accurate enough throughout the entire day, though it is significantly louder than my PRX. Another similarity that they have is that they both apparently have lume. I have never seen either of them work. These watches are pretty easy to find on eBay. There seems to be a variety of different versions of these, some even boasting 10 bars of water resistance, others talking about its shockproofness. There's a lot of different variations. To me, where the PRX and this Sheffield are similar is the use case. When the original C-Star was released and when the Sheffield was released, they were just supposed to be sport watches. These were watches that were supposed to be accurate as well as take a bit of a beating. They were shockproof and waterproof. These were watches that you can wear maybe while playing a game in the backyard, maybe even a light swim or two. You can definitely wear while hiking, which is what I do with my PRX. At the end of the day, these were just sport watches that were easier to wear than their big bulky dive counterparts. Today I think the PRX fits in with that same idea. It's a watch I wear while doing pretty much anything, whether it's going to work, riding my bike to a coffee shop, going on a hike, or just doing the dishes. Most people just want a watch that they can wear, that can take a few hits, and that they don't need to think about. The Sheffield is really similar in that regard. It kind of itches that dive watch thing that I've been wanting without me needing to get something that's as built out as a Tudor Black Bay. The Sheffield and the PRX are both watches I don't have to think about once I have them on. I put them on, go about my day, and I don't really think about them being there. So while I wouldn't recommend that you go get a vintage skin diver as your daily sport watch, I think it's fun to get one into your collection, if only just to see how sport watches have changed in the past couple of decades. Especially today when so many watch designs have faux patina or try to look age or harken back to vintage designs, I think it's cool to actually get a vintage piece yourself and kind of compare those throughout your collection. So that's gonna do it for today's video. If you own a PRX or a Sheffield even, let me know in the comments down below and let me know what your day-to-day watch is. I have a feeling for most of you, it's an Apple Watch of some kind. As always, I appreciate it a bunch that you took the time to watch this video. A like and subscribe goes a long way. You can also check out some of my other videos over here if you'd like to see more of what I got up to. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the next video.